Yeah, that's been a thing. So we decided that we needed a little more control along the way, and we went to the sort of base drive configuration. Originally, my idea was that we'd be very clever and avoid slip rings by using Wi-Fi and ESP32s to control the wings. This is actually not a good idea. And the reason is because as the wing rotates, it sweeps the antenna nulls across the brain box, which means it loses communication occasionally. It turns out slip rings really don't suck that badly. So we're using those for the communications. And you can see how the wiring is in all the wings and the servos that drive the wing and that drive the propeller. So once we get to that, we've done a lot of sailing. Most of these pictures, some of them are Green Lake, some of them are Lake Washington. It sails pretty well, as it turns out. However, our new pilot turns out to have a few problems. And we went around and around in circles on this, both on the water and intellectually, which the boat would sail to a waypoint for about 5 minutes, and then would lose the plot and wander off. And I found and fixed a bunch of things that weren't the problem. And in about March, we also discovered that our new pilot's capsize protection code doesn't quite work as advertised. It trips at about twice the set point, which was good for a capsize in March. And this is actually the track from the capsize. You can see that after it capsized, it's probably the straightest course it sailed was when it blew to the dock. So at that point, we had some work to do because we'd flipped it over, and we decided to go with some better software. We used something called PX4, also designed for flying quadcopters. Unlike Autopilot, which is sort of a monolithic piece of software, it's a modular, so you can run different processes. A lot easier to debug. Someone figured out how to connect Mavlink over through the cloud over cellular connection. A guy named Peter Burke. We downloaded his code, and it basically worked immediately, which was nice. We also redid the electronics, put in a bigger battery, put in a power switch so we didn't have to open it and unplug something to turn it off. Yeah, so the new electronics are better, the new software hopefully was better. That part's going well. Now, this is about the point in time when we got our NSF grant and started looking for a bigger shop to build our next larger prototype. It turns out that if you want 1 or 2,000 square feet of light industrial space in Seattle, you're signing up to be trolled. So we had 2 months of seeing questionable spaces. The best one, though, was part of an old dry cleaning plant with a mystery tank and leaking a mystery puddle next to it. But actually it ended up working out because we got about 400 square feet space, which is not quite enough at Fremont Active Space. But those guys, it was like, yeah, I saw the ad and 48 hours later I had a signed lease. It was great. So there's some pictures of the space. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the catamaran you see in here, which is the donor boat for our what we call our subscale prototype, which is the next scale up. We were hoping to have it here, but between COVID and supply chain fuck-ups, well, no. The last critical box of parts got delivered to my house on Wednesday. Perfect timing. Anyways, so this ancient Hobie cat, it's older than I am, bought it in Oregon and parked it in Dylan's driveway for a while. The trailer survived the 4-hour highway haul up from Oregon, but when we towed it to the new place, about 5 blocks from the new place, the tongue broke. right in the middle of the road. And luckily we had a chase car, and Heather was driving the chase car, leaned on the horn. I looked back, the boat's not where it should be. It's down, like nose down like this on the road. So I immediately stop and we get out, and it's like, well, fuck. Luckily we broke down in front of some very nice people who let us use their driveway to basically bodge it together well enough to get it to our shop. Whereupon the bodge promptly broke. And we've built a new trailer, so we're not out too much. The other funny thing about that boat is it's actually the first thing I spent grant money on. So first federal money I've ever been personally responsible for. What's the first thing I do with it? I go to some muddy field in Oregon and hand some sketchy ass dude a stack of Benjamins for a sketchy ass boat. But it's a solid boat. It turns out that even after scraping the bows, it doesn't leak very much. And due to the way that we're building the boat, the things that are really wrong with it are not really our problem. So that's coming together. Here's some of the pictures. You can see Dylan working on one of the wings, getting that skinned up. We've rolled it out into our parking lot and put up one of the wings. If it looks like it's canted over about 10 degrees, that's because it is. We're using the pylons of sort of the stock frame as the mounting points for the wings, which means that the wings have to follow the line of that pylon, which is about 10 degrees off vertical. You can also see the battery box and the power distribution box, which Jeremy built. They're very nicely wired. The bench top put all the electronics in one place so I can code on them. Yeah, I built that. It's way messier. But it does, in fact, do the business. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Have you thought about using GPS mocking to do full testing without actually having to deploy it?
So one of the things Graham's working on is putting together a full simulation environment. Which, since it's something that we said we'd do in the grant, is kind of important. It's important to both development and to making sure that they give us the second tranche of money.
How large can these be before they can be detected? The goal being building undetectable units that are capable of carrying cargo, preferably camouflaged.
Well, Key Profit, I think that should be a discussion for afterwards in private.
For mobility, how well does it tack upwind?
So wing sails are really good upwind. Yeah. This boat's windward performance is a little dicey for several reasons that basically boil down to I'm not a naval architect. But the nice thing about wing sails is that you can get a relatively high lift to drag ratio, which means that you can do very well upwind.
How would that compare speed-wise with like your typical cargo ship, for example?
So your typical container ship, like big one, is a 16 to 20 knot ride. Our initial market is going to be in Alaska, where we're competing with barges, which are more like an 8-10 knot ride. So we are quite sure that we can deliver, a voyage average speed at least as good as a barge. Our top end is going to be faster than a container ship, but we probably can't maintain that, as a regularly scheduled service.
How do you manage to move the harbor?
So it does have electrical, not this boat, but the subscale prototype and all the ones that come after will have electric propulsion for docking. It is possible to dock under sail, but that is an expert maneuver when the conditions are perfect.
Do you have provisions for a harbor pilot?
So we're setting it up to be optionally crewed, because it turns out that the big economic win is getting the fuel off, not the crew off. So we're basically going to set up for a bolt-on crew and control cabin. And then when the regulations come to a point where it's, and our technical development come to a point where it's possible, we can just take that off.
And it'll just be like with the maintenance part.
Yeah. Yeah, we're planning to do like aluminum hulls, so you don't have to do the like 24/7 rust busting. I think Emily first, and then Blue Headband.
I just wanted to follow up on the question about wear and tear on these and the materials you're using. How long do you think one of these will last? What kinds of maintenance will people need to do on them?
So we're going to definitely we're going to design for the typical 20-year life that most ships are designed for. We think that's fairly easily achievable. At some point, this point, it's just an engineering problem to engineer for the duration of service you want.
My question was, what is the plan for communication while at sea? Is it just like hope and pray until you get to dock, or is it like Radio Exotica?
So it's satellite link, and high enough bandwidth that you can get like full video. Like you could basically, drive this remotely as if you were sitting on it. So we call that supervised autonomy, when we're talking about that.
How important or what sensors will it be for collision avoidance?
So it's really the same set of sensors that a conventional vessel has. So radar is sort of your outer ring of seeing other vessels. There's a system called AIS, which all ships above 300 gross tons are required to basically transmit their position continuously, and almost all of them do. So between that, we should be able to see most potential collisions, especially if we're out in the middle of the ocean or in the approaches. Once we're in harbor, cameras, both IR and visual, and LiDAR come into play to detect things that maybe are not cooperative and not transmitting AIS. Like we don't want to run over a kayaker, for example.
What's the testing plan for the subscale prototype?
So we're going to sail it a lot in the Sound. One of the reasons that we're hoping to bring it up here is that we have some existence proof that there is at least a small market for carrying a few hundred pounds at a time around the Sound. There's an outfit called Salty Dog Dry Goods that was doing that for a few years in like someone's off-the-shelf cruising sailboat. And I think it was mostly an excuse for the guy to go sailing, which 100% support. But we think that there's a market for like farm-to-table vegetables and things like that around the Sound to sort of get us in operation, get some revenue, figure out what we don't know about using a robot boat to haul cargo.
Do you think you could navigate the Ballard locks?
Not autonomously, and not like the problem with locks. It's not like the physically go into the place and sit in place.
Yeah.
It's the dealing with all the people, right? And the lines. That's even not so bad. And with a robot and two motors, you can just have it hold position, probably better than lines would. But ultimately, talking to people is a people thing, not a robot thing.
And you don't think they'll want to talk to you on the phone while you're remotely piloting your...
I think that might be a difficult sell.
Do you think that means in the future there'll need to be some standard for like harbor master control of your own vehicles?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like there is a whole sort of regulatory stack of problems. And I think you had your hand up way in the back.
So two questions. Do you have some sensing strategy for like deadheads if you're going to be floating around the Sound? And then secondly, what you going to do with the pirates?
Okay, so for first question, we'll probably deal with deadheads the way most large ships do, which is to ignore them. They just hit them. You know, and it leaves a little dent, and you know, you got a couple inches thick of steel. Who gives a shit, right? Pirates. What's interesting is piracy is generally a strong-arm crime, right? So pirate boards the vessel, points a gun at the captain, says, "Do what I want," right? If there's nobody on board, there's nobody to point a gun at, right? So it's like, okay, the pirates are on board. That's nice. We know they're there. We know where the Coast Guard is. And, you know, we can arrange a meeting. Anything else?
There's some sort of like abandoned property on the ocean law or something. If you're in international waters, can't your boat just be snagged by anybody?
It's complicated. The International Maritime Organization is working on rules for autonomous vessels. Not expected to be finalized until 2028 at the earliest. So all of that shit's in flux. Right now, we're mostly looking at U.S. port to U.S. port, which means we only have to deal with one set of regulators. And you had a
I was curious about your sail plan. Like, it feels like the intuitive thing would be one wing on each pylon, and obviously you haven't done that. So, like, what's the...
So the basic idea for this is this leaves the deck free for cargo handling, right? So we can come up to the dock on the starboard side to the dock, and you can use completely conventional cranes, forklifts. You don't have to deal with the sails at all, right? And it turns out to not actually make that much of a difference in handling. In the hoodie in the back?
Is there a market, you think, for beach landing delivery?
Yes. Our minimum viable vessel is definitely sized for beach landings. And what sort of twigged us to that market is we were looking at, hey, maybe we could buy like an old landing craft and put some sails on it for a demo, and that would be kind of awesome. And what we very quickly discovered is that if you look at like an old LCM-8, which is a pretty typical landing craft, an LCM-8, Vietnam era, they're in the Pacific Northwest, costs about $300,000 more than the same boat in the Caribbean or on the East Coast. And the reason is the demand for them up in Alaska. And if you're wondering how much it costs to get one from the East Coast to the Pacific Northwest, I think I already answered that question. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. All right.
Yeah. Do we have a few minutes to clear out the...
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, we're just going to get set up.
Okay.
Cool. What type of video output do you have? USB-C.
Okay.
Or USB.
Which board did you use for your control? So this is currently an board. Okay. Which, it does a lot of, it integrates a lot of critical things. Yeah. There's a Raspberry Pi 0W under that.
That is fantastic.
So, and this companion computer talks.
Do you have any audio?
No.
Oh, would you like to hold the mic, or do you want to adjust this?
I can sit here.
Yeah, it's basically there's a type up in the cloud that both and it just passes it.
It's turning on.
I need to grab this.
I need power.
Yeah, I think we should try to get to that.
You're like,
Interwave.
Yay.
Pancake lot.
Yeah.
no, it was like what happened?
Douglas would like the output from the mixer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we miss you.
Well,
Yeah, it's packaged for. It's actually packaged for Debian. For the whole thing.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, there's always next time. You better come.
No, it's packaged.
Okay.
Hi.
I can watch you. Hi, Christy.
Super cool. I don't know if I've ever seen him in person before, so this is pretty cool to see.
I called for ODGA.
Yeah.
Is there a way to do presenter view? Yeah, can I do presenter view without like? Because if I click presenter view here,
Live stream.
it'll show my person and not his presenter view.
There should be a way to.
We actually have a GoPro mount.
Like if I
Can you extend the display? Is it running Windows?
it is.
So I go to Windows settings.
So I'm not getting any audio from the board.
Yeah, which one are you?
It's this one. It's the audio microphone.
Okay.
Yep. You want to just try copy that cable? Or just go to a different cable and see because 90% of problems. It's actually a real
Should I? A little bit far away. If you end up getting too close, you have to kind of keep your head at the same spot for it to sound good. If you move over to the side, it won't pick you up. But we'll adjust it. We have another mic to hand you if there's a problem.
Okay.
So
Oh no, that's it. I got something. Level of no idea. I've got a lot of fun level. Okay, down.
So,
oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
More improvements next time.
We're not doing
Oh, I do have a question. Is this being live streamed?
Yes.
Okay, and it'll be available after.
It's available immediately. It's like going to be on video recording. There's always a chance.
We're trying.
You're doing VGA out of it though. This is the VGA.
What's the problem?
Well, we're doing. Oh wait, VGA. Oh, and that's
going to the
splitter.
I got a splitter.
Okay.
So he's got a feed.
Okay.
We've got a feed.
So he's good.
All right. Your computer's out of the loop.
Okay.
Basically, router one.
But goddamn it, if you're not here, I've been saying this before you're married. You're
Yeah, this is Windows. It should be F11. That's what I thought too.
Can you go over to the little menu on the top right?
Oh, this is.
Or yeah, like up over there. And then this one. Ah, there we go. Cool.
Test, 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 kind of, yeah.
Move it closer.
Or move it closer. Test, 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 test. That, yeah. Does it work? Yeah.
So, okay. All ready?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. All right. Oh, testing, testing. Okay, we're going to get started here with our next talk by Danielle Trinh, talking about leading a first robotics team post-COVID. So please give her a warm round of applause.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Trinh. I'm a rising senior in high school from Los Angeles, and this is leading a first robotics team post-COVID. All right. Before I get started, how many of you have been involved in FIRST Robotics before? How about, have you heard of it? Okay, cool. All right, I'll tell you a little bit about myself before I get into what FIRST Robotics is and the story of bringing my team back after COVID. And to put it simply, robotics has changed my life. All right, I am not an outgoing person, and I joined the team as the only female freshman of my group. And really the only reason I joined was because my brother applied 2 years earlier and he didn't make it. So, you know, sibling rivalry, I had to one-up him. But actually I stuck around the 2 other rookie programmers and we bonded over being completely clueless. I literally remember we went to Starbucks one time and we had like a mini meltdown session because we had no idea what we were doing. We were kind of just thrown in and none of us had programming experience before. But the other programmers were busy like programming other subsystems of the robot. And the only reason why we didn't leave the team was because of one mentor who sat down with us at times and he would walk us through the code. But the issue is he was really well versed in all the other things like computer-aided design and electronics, so he would be helping out with other things for most of the time. And I decided to stay with the team. COVID hit, so we actually didn't get to go to any competitions my first year. And during the pandemic, I decided to work on my own skills. So I earned a C++ certification. I took on the role of events executive, and then I took ownership of the Discord server, which was used for leisure gaming, and then I turned it into our team's main form of communication. But one quote that I like from Steve Jobs is, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. So you have to trust the dots will somehow connect in your future." I guess they did connect because I'm here today. And after building a reputation of initiative and commitment, I was elected as president of the team for my junior year without any competition experience. And then again for this coming year. And also thank you to Code Day for generously providing me with this opportunity to come to toorcamp. All right, FIRST Robotics. FIRST stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology, and it's an international organization that runs various robotics competitions, starting from elementary going up to high school. The one that I'm part of is the high school level, and it's called FIRST Robotics Competition. And it's honestly the most comprehensive STEM learning experience that I know of because it includes both technical and business. So it's very hands-on experience in terms of the technical side. We use different metals and sensors, and we have the angle grinder, and we also use tools like the mill, lathe, CNC, bandsaw, drill press, all of those. And some teams even use like laser cutting or water jet, but our team can't really afford that. We're literally designing and building 100-pound robots from scratch that run on 12-volt batteries, and oftentimes with pneumatics too. So on the more business side, at least for my team, since we're student-led. So we do all of our event planning and coordination for going to competitions and outreach to the community. And we also do our own financial management. And the thing about FIRST that I really like is that it's very community-based. They have a value. One of their core values is gracious professionalism. And what this is, it's a way of doing things that really emphasizes respecting individuals and valuing the community around creating competitive robots. And so my team is Team 599, the Robodocs. We wear lab coats because it stands for Robot Doctors, and we run something that's unique to our team, and we call it the Robot First Aid Station. So during competitions, we set up a little booth, and teams can come to us if they need spare parts. So we go scavenging, looking through all the other competition pits and seeing if we can help them out. And if they need technical experience or helping with the mechanical side of their robot, we do help them with that. And if we can't do it, we find someone else who can. Now, the peer-to-peer teaching, it's great until we lose 2 years because of COVID. And suddenly there are only 5 students on our 40-person team who have any sort of competition experience, not including the president. So it was a tough year. And we also lost a lot of mentors for whatever reason, especially because our school really cracked down on COVID guidelines, so they couldn't physically be in person with us. And this leads us into the beginning of the season, which is Kickoff. This happens every January. They release the game, and this year's game was called Rapid React. You can see the field on the bottom left. And the way that it worked was there's 2 alliances, the Red Alliance, Blue Alliance. That's universal to every game. And then you have 3 teams or 3 robots per alliance. And for this year's game, the robots would go around the field, they collect their respective colored balls, and they shoot them into either the lower hub or the upper hub, kind of like basketball. A lot of teams used flywheels this year. And at the end of the game, or towards the end of the game, like the last 30 seconds usually, you go to the corners of the field and you climb what are like monkey bars, and you get extra points for traversing higher bars. So normally during Kickoff, the first day is when there's like a bajillion ideas flowing around and you're doing all the brainstorming. But this year we had like no experience. So there was a lot of confusion. We didn't really know how to interpret like the 40-page game manual. We were trying to read through it together, and it was just overall really, really disorganized. And I know the mentors also felt that because they were kind of trying to push us along, but the thing about our mentors is they really respect the student-led factor of our team, so they don't want to impede too much, and that's really where we learned the most. So I remember driving home that day literally crying because I didn't know what to do with the team. And I wiped up my tears, and we spent 4 hours on call. I was in call with my chief engineer and one mentor, and we were trying to figure out how to run literally just the next day. So the next day came, and it ran a lot smoother. We managed to compile our ideas for prototyping until the school told us we can't meet after school anymore because of COVID. So that took us a while to internalize, but we did make do, and I invited people to my garage, and that's how we spent the first week prototyping. We were eventually allowed back onto campus, except under like strict regulations and time regulations. But COVID mostly impacted our design in CAD because a lot of people hadn't designed mechanisms before, so they had troubles with doing all the calculations and figuring out how things fit together. And we went really overboard with it, so we finished our CAD over halfway through the season, and normally you only CAD for like the first 2 weeks. So we had 3 weeks left for all the fabrication, wiring, testing, and practice. I can tell you we didn't get to testing and practice, but we did finish our robot literally 12 minutes before we packed up the trailer for our first competition. At least we made it. And And first competition didn't go so well, as you can expect from not practicing or doing any testing. Things were breaking literally every single match, and we pay a $5,000 registration fee for 11 qualification matches. And if your team does well enough, you can move on to playoffs. We did not do that well. The second day, there was a lot more frustration because our robot just was not doing anything. Like, we were pretty much useless for all of our matches because we didn't figure out until after the competition, but we had a lot of people look at our robot to try to see what was wrong because we drive our robot using an Xbox remote. And every time we tried going forward, first time it goes forward, okay? And then without changing any code, you try to drive forward again and it turns right or something. And it keeps changing. There was no pattern whatsoever. It was really strange and no one could figure it out. But afterwards we figured out it's because we switched to encoder wires as we were fixing the robot. And that was a big learning lesson. So everyone was really bummed out. We did take a hit. We ranked like 33rd out of 40. So we weren't last, but we felt pretty useless. And I remember hearing all my teammates saying, okay, we're not making it to Worlds this year. GG, go next. We're done. But you know, everyone knows success comes from successful recoveries. So we had a team debrief after we got back to school. It was difficult to moderate the debrief because we usually come up with pros, cons, and then specific areas of improvement before the next competition. But the only 3 pros were had a robot, weren't last, and food came on time. So yeah, that was tough. But eventually we got together and we talked about like shifting strategies. We decided to go for a defense robot. Usually that's like lower tier teams do, but we went for more just being stable, being resilient, and being reliable. And our mentors were actually really level-headed, and they sacrificed more of their time to try and stay late. We literally maximized our hours with the school until they had to kick us out. And it was really inspiring to people. So bouncing back, for our second and final regional competition, we had a really good first day. Things were working out really well. We were ranking like top 8 for pretty much the entire day. And then we also had a team dinner with another team, which really boosted morale afterwards. The second day, we were falling in rankings, but we actually fell to just the right spot because the way that alliance selection works is the top 8 teams get to pick the first robot on their alliance for playoffs, and then it goes down from the bottom up. So seed 8 picks their third robot, and they go all the way back up to the first one. We were at the last pick, so it was the first alliance, and we still hadn't been chosen yet, but there were 4 robots ranked on top of us. But since we demonstrated really good defense, we ended up being the ones getting picked. So we were really excited to not have to go home yet. And, you know, we ended up actually winning. So that was the first regional win our team has ever had. And we're one of the really old teams, so we've been around for 20 plus years. And the closest we've gotten was like finals a couple times. And this was our first blue banner win, and it was incredible. Yeah. Everyone was really fired up. And the catch is we didn't have enough funding, so we were only allowed to take 12 students out of our 40-person team to Worlds. But nevertheless, it was a really surreal experience. These are some pictures. Most of them are from Einstein's, which are the finals. We didn't make it there, but it was really cool watching it. So thousands of teams compete around the world, but less than 500 are invited to Worlds. And they were in Houston, Texas this year, so it was a really fun trip, even though we had a smaller group than we wanted to. And just being surrounded by all the top teams in the world was incredible. And there's these pits. It's this picture on the bottom left where you walk through, and that's where all the teams are stationed. They have their robots in there, or they're testing, they're fixing their bot between matches. And it's just really cool walking through and talking to everyone, since some people are coming from overseas, and you just get so many different perspectives, and these are like the brightest kids in the world. So I'm here to tell you to invest in the youth, because we are engineering a brighter future. And I mean investing in terms of time and in terms of resources. Like, obviously bringing 12 out of 40 kids to like the biggest event ever, it's a little disappointing, but hopefully we can make it next year. And a huge part of competitions is actually networking. As I explained with the pits, you can walk through and you can talk to a bunch of different people. So in a previous competition, I walked through the pits and I ended up talking to a mentor from another team. He's a manager at Boeing, and he hired me as a summer intern. And he actually connected me with an engineering mentor or an engineering manager at Boeing Field in Seattle, which I visited prior to this tour camp. And it was really cool because I was able to get in with my badge, and they would walk me around the labs, and I get to see some really cool things. And there's so many other stories of what we went through and what I learned that I couldn't fit into these 20 minutes. But thank you for your time. And this is a really unique community of creative hackers and makers. And I urge you all to consider sharing your passion with kids like me, living the high school experience that can't be found in the classroom. And as a side note, I spent 10 hours with a couple other people yesterday at the pancake bot because I want to bring it back to my robotics team. And half the time was spent trying to print a QR code, which we got really close, but it's not really scannable. So I do have a bit of PTSD, but here's a QR code that you can scan if you want to get involved in robotics. It takes you to my team's webpage, and you can read more about us. And yeah, thank you guys.
Are there any questions? I think we have a couple minutes. Anybody? Oh.
Hi, this is really cool. I have elementary age kids. What do they do in that age? Do you know? I know that you're in high school, but how do you get them started really young? Because it sounds really exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. So they do have the first Lego League, which I believe starts from elementary school. And it's the same idea, competitive robotics. They were actually at the Houston World Championships when we went, and they're really cute. They're little kids, and they're having this like huge experience because they get to walk around and they see the other competition, FTC, which goes from middle school, and it includes high schoolers too. And then they also get to see the high school kids, and we're all in the same convention center. And what they do is they build robots with Legos. So you can get them started with that.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Microphone. Hi, I'm a microphone. Hi, this is a microphone. Not yet. This is almost a microphone. Hello, this is a microphone. I'm testing the microphone. The microphone works. That's it. The test is over. The talk will start soon. The talk will start in 4 minutes, plus or minus 30 seconds. I'm not that exact. There's a duck. It's right here. You got it? I can move it. So it's, that's great. The duck is, you know, you need a duck. If you're good. Oh. Well,
But you're in frame when you're on the mic. You're good right there.
You know, if you're explaining something, you need a duck. So I brought a duck with me. I was like, if you're nervous speaking, imagine everybody. It's like, no, if you're nervous speaking, imagine talking to a duck. So it's like normal.
You all ready? I guess. Great. Sure.
Who knows? I mean, ducks and dinosaurs. So.
All right, we're going to get started here. Quick list of announcements. Lost and found over at Reg. Pick up your dog poop. Stay hydrated, please. There may be some soup left at the back of the dome. The big thing today is that shirts are on sale today for $20 if you want an extra Tour Camp t-shirt. We also still have mugs, which are also $20. The Reg tent has those, and they take cash or Venmo. Reg closes at 6:30 p.m., so stop by to get any last-minute merch. Otherwise, they'll be, for the most part, closing down after 6:30. And then after that point, Lost and Found will be moving to security, which is at the retreat house, in case you lose anything. And with that, I'd like to welcome to the stage Case Organic, teaching you 8 ways to hack a DAO. Please give him a warm welcome.
Hello, I'm Case Organic. I'm here to tell you about DAOs and how to hack them and why you should hack them. Who here is familiar with the DAO? Raise your hand. Hooray! Who here trades cryptocurrency or has cryptocurrency? Okay, interesting Venn diagram here. There's like one person in the middle. Okay, excellent. Okay, I'll just start. What is a DAO? So DAOs came out and they were called decentralized autonomous organizations. None of that is true. It's a really silly name. I don't know how it ever catches on, how these things catch on anyway. I'm going to explain to you what a DAO is in a very simple term. What if you want to have a bunch of people that want to decide to do something together? In this case, this is called Dinner DAO. We collectively put money into a treasury and then we choose places to go for dinner. This is minimum viable DAO, in my opinion. You put money towards it. It looks like this, a stock photo. And then you put this into a shared treasury. So you have an idea, you put your money into a box, but it's a digital box. And then you put it into a digital vault, and a tiny smart contract dragon guards it. And this is what the smart contract dragon looks like. It doesn't have color yet because we're early in the crypto age. So color is coming soon. Devs are working on it, maybe V3 after proof of stake. The treasury money is then managed through voting. Hooray! What does it mean to vote? Well, everybody has, you could have this thing called a multi-sig, which is a multi-signature. It's kind of like having the launch codes to nuclear weapons. You don't want to have them all in one person, but you can all vote. You can be like, should we shoot nuclear weapons in another country? Let's vote. It's like that, but with a bank account. But it's digital. It's crypto. Is this making sense? Okay, good. Okay, next, the funds should go towards the DAO's purpose. Unless you all decide to control quit and just leave the DAO, then you have to refund everybody. Right now, it's kind of hard to refund everybody because there's transaction costs when you refund people in crypto. So you might put in a little bit of money and then it costs more to get the money out than to put it in because we're dealing with a singularity of money and there's a gravitational force upon getting something out of a singularity. It's expensive. The traditional definition is a decentralized autonomous organization or a bossless org. What? It's not bossless. This is ridiculous. Everybody in it is a boss, but there are mini boss. You can either have bossing in terms of you have one token, one vote, as in, I bought 1 share of this miniature decentralized LLC, therefore I have 1 vote. Or you could have how most DAOs are run right now, which is if I have a lot of money and I put a lot of money in, then I have a weighted vote. That becomes very interesting. It's run by members. It's not bossless. But some of the members are more equal than others. Members can be easily swayed. Just like a boardroom meeting, you can curry favor or disfavor among members, turn them against each other, and have them do different things with the treasury if you have majority vote. Not decentralized. Often if you have the power, again, singularities abound here. It's not autonomous because if you don't decide what to do or make a proposal or do a vote, it doesn't run itself. I mean, you can't make a smart contract that says, and then simulate these 10 people. Actually, you can. You can make an NPC contract if you wanted to. But most DAOs do not run on NPC contracts, and if they do, that's another bad situation because then somebody can hack that even more easily. It's people-powered completely. This is what it looks like in a DAO. One person's on the phone, coordinating everything for everyone else. They're kind of walking by being like, I invested in this DAO because I wanted to buy a copy of the Constitution, but I forgot about it a long time ago because for DAOs, it's kind of a like button attached to my crypto wallet, and this is what I'm doing. Barely counts as an organization. This is not an organization. This is one guy basically taking all of the money and being like, ha ha ha, maybe people forget about it, maybe there'll be a boom or a bust in the crypto cycle and they'll be like, what did I do? What's my transaction history? Did I buy this NFT to be part of this DAO? I don't know. Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, there's been no updates. Oh, there's too many Discord servers. I left that Discord server. There's too much information. Most people don't know how to organize. This is the truth. This is why we have government and we have multi-generational wealth at Yale learning how to do governance so that the rest of us don't get to. A DAO is much more like an LLC, but with some executable code. You have an LLC, you have members, you have a shared bank account, hooray, you have voting weight. It's pretty similar. And if it goes well, it's more like a grocery co-op, and you know how spicy those things can get. The main difference between a lot of traditional DAOs right now and grocery co-ops is that grocery co-ops and collectives have learned that if you have one person, they can have one vote, and that tends to make things slightly less spicy, but not totally less spicy. It still means that you can have a bunch of people behind the scenes currying favor for somebody or seeding distrust. There's a lot of DAOs today, which is if you have the largest amount of buy-in, the largest amount of tokens or votes, then you have more of a weight in the vote. And this is where it becomes very easy to hack a DAO. Of course, in crypto, if you have a lot of tokens, you're called a whale. You can also be called like a trout or a, no, I'm kidding. It's just whales. But if you're a whale, you can basically, you have more gravitational pull, and you can, so in Einstein's general theory of relativity, the shape of space is affected by the matter, and matter affects the shape of space. So it's really like dealing with gravitational physics with DAOs. The more votes you have, the more consolidation of power. But we all know this because we've experienced government before from above. What is a DAO at its best? A DAO at its best is really cool. You can have open source developer tools as a DAO. You can have people in other DAOs send over tokens and support the development of cross-tooled software. Like I'm part of several developer DAOs right now, and I'm getting paid by several DAOs for fixing bugs and doing things like that. It's super fun. There's bug bounties that you can have from a sub-DAO that's super easy to build. Hey, we have 10,000 tokens for this. They're swappable in this ecosystem. Do this thing, prove it. We'll make a proposal in our DAO that says that you did this thing, and the DAO members will vote to give you those tokens. It's amazing for open source development. Healthcare DAOs. There's a lot of people who are, they bought into a DAO so that they could buy a giant healthcare plan and drag down the price. So they could basically have healthcare of a giant organization as small individual contractors. That's very interesting. Also, open insulin DAOs. You want to buy your insulin on an untraceable black market? DAOs are for you. What is a DAO at its really best? You could transform things like cities or change the environment. I run a proof of stake validator in the Cosmos ecosystem that donates 50% of its revenue to regenerational agriculture projects run by indigenous people. It's like the longest sentence in the world, but it's neat. And also just having a thing where it's like, let's make a DAO to fix all the potholes in our streets by underground guerrilla pothole fillers. I saw some of them at the conference already. Thank you for filling those potholes. What is a DAO at its worst? Millions of random degen crypto people raising their hands out of the soil of the fourth layer of the inferno of hell, trying to get a return on their DAO token. Yeah, it's just complete greed. And a lot of Telegram channels trying to pump and dump. This is the state of what it is. So DAOs today, a lot of DAOs are about, let me accumulate a lot of the power of the DAO, let me buy a lot of NFTs in the DAO. A lot of them are very exciting in the beginning, and you buy in, and then there's no follow through. But that's just kind of how a lot of things are. Kind of like Kickstarter, the original like button attached to your wallet. What are the risks to DAOs? Focus. I made a DAO. Oh no, I don't have enough time to maintain the DAO. Oh, I forgot about the DAO. Oh no. Oh no. Speed. I made the DAO too fast without thinking it through. Oh no. Follow through. I've never done follow through before. I'm just an ideas person. Ha 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 ha. See ya. Case in point, this DAO is called Constitution DAO. We are all gonna buy the Constitution, and there's a Nicolas Cage figure on it. Okay, so how does that work? Well, Sotheby's, this auction house, put up a rare copy of the Constitution, and these kids got together and they're like, we're gonna buy that copy. It's like $40 million. Let's bid. Okay, they raised it. They raised it really fast, like 3-4 days. random folks on the web using Ethereum through Juicebox, which is a decentralized funding thing. Just throw your ETH in, pay the transaction cost, join the DAO. What are you going to get out of the DAO? We don't know. You're going to own a piece of history. You're going to be one of 10,000 owners of a rare copy of the Constitution. Why is this important? I don't know, but it was so easy to raise the money, and it just felt like we were all putting crypto and DAOs on the map. I definitely bought into this. I bought like $100 of Constitution DAO. I got in the Discord. I started being active in the community. Yeah, what are you going to do with this? I asked. Crickets. Oh yeah, they didn't prepare for the idea that they might get outbid by an angry billionaire that doesn't like cryptocurrency. I think he bid $50 million, and we only bid $45 million. Measly, small amount of money here. So I went in the Discord and I said, cool, so now what? Everyone's like, oh, we're just going to refund everyone their money. So now we're talking about kids that put in like $25 worth of ETH. The transaction cost at that time, because it was a bull market, was about $100 to claim the refund. So there's a bunch of money getting stuck in the DAO. The second thing that happened was like, oh, well, we'll just give you a token called People Token, and People Token will represent your ownership in the DAO. So I was online late at night once, and I found out that like the token price had suddenly gone up 20x. So I sell these tokens and make some money and put it into some other DAO scheme, because it's play with the casino while you can. But this was a hilarious thing because they didn't plan for the failure. And in the Discord channel, I said, you know, we can feed a lot of hungry people. We can save a lot of dogs and cats at a no-kill shelter. We could cancel a lot of college debt. No, we're going to give a refund. No! Well, when you make a DAO, maybe plan for the alternative that you might not succeed and figure it out, but it's hard to do that. It's hard when everything is new and you might be a part of history. I really liked being part of this DAO. I still have People Tokens. I'm thinking at some point someone will make an art project that is only viewable online if you hold People Tokens in your Ethereum wallet. Someone can build that. Many DAOs trip over their own ambition because it's so easy to make a DAO, but it's not easy in the world to do anything long-term with success and follow-through. So I want to be part of this DAO because I wanted to belong. My old roommate in college said, you Americans are so silly. You need a machine to tell you that you're connected to one another. She was like, in India, we got like 3,000 years of this, so like, I don't know what's going on, guys. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Americans, especially puritanically backed Americans, which many of us are, do need a machine to tell us that we're connected. We seek community. We have friendship groups based on the same thing, like, you know, modems and stuff. So, hi, my name is Case, and I work on DAO. I make weird futuristic DAO tooling on the Cosmos ecosystem. We read this book a lot, the Dao De Ching. We work on Discord together and don't know who each other is, which is great. And the most important thing is this isn't funded by any VCs. We're doing all this work without VCs, trying to push forward the idea of a new model for supporting open source software. Hooray! And on the way, we failed a lot. So here are 8 ways to hack a DAO. Number one thing is the attack surface of a DAO is totally social. As I said before, it's run by people. It's people all the way down. And then some smart contracts, which are written by people, so it's still people. Smart contracts are people too. The first thing you can do is political storytelling. If you go online and you write a very simple, very wrong story that's easier to parse than a long, correct story, people's autocomplete in their brain will attach right into the amygdala. The amygdala will fire and get you into your lizard brain and go, and then you will spread the story because you're just really upset. And this has been used on the API for our emotions, Twitter, a long time to control and divide a lot of groups of people. It works the same in DAOs. It's even better in DAOs. It's even more effective. At the micro level, you can just rack a DAO real quick this way. Creating social doubt. Well, this is related to the first one. You can make a big for a DAO, and then you can go online and with a bunch of bot accounts, seed distrust between the two parties. Make something controversial, polarize it, go back and forth. In people's confusion, they will hurt themselves. They will hurt themselves in their confusion. It will be bad, and then it will fail. Overt hostile takeover. So my friend K. Maikiam was the world's first publicly traded person. He was in the military for a while, got out, and realized that he didn't have anybody telling him what to do. So he said, I'm going to make, I think this was 2009, I'm going to make myself into a token called KMyKM, and then you can invest in me, and you have voting shares in my life, including whether he dated somebody, broke up with somebody, or got a vasectomy, his political party, and the brand of the clothing that he wore. Literally all of his real life decisions. Now, recently, this guy, Paticus, he sold his company for over $200 million and decided to do a hostile takeover of KMyKM shares and thus controlling his entire life. One vote, one person, or buy as many tokens as you want and take over. Yeah, it's happening right now. You can follow this on Twitter. This is real. This is real. It's a real thing. Validator fights. With Bitcoin, you have proof of work. You have to mine some things with some computers, and but then a lot of things are moving to proof of stake, where you have to run a validator, and it's kind of an oligopoly where there's a lot of different people validating your chain with proof of stake. These proof of stake validators can also vote, and they can also fight with each other. So you can say, hey, here are all the top validators. Fight. Just seed distrust. All you have to do is go to a conference, say like, I really don't like that one validator. They did this one thing, and or I don't trust that one. They're anon, and I don't think they're actually real. And then they can be like, oh, or like, I think this person actually has this other thing. And it's so easy. It's so gossipy. And then it, you know. There are also that validate governance to everybody. Here's, you know, one wallet address. We'll give you some tokens. But there was a centralized exchange that held on to tokens for people, and they had about 10,000 addresses. So they took the airdrop of 10,000 token airdrops at once, put it into one singular wallet, and had about $50 million at the height, I think. And almost the majority, and have bots and pay other people. Anyway, it was a great controversy. You can read it online on Reddit mostly. And then there's all this fear, uncertainty, and doubt over these contested votes. And then at the very end, we took the tokens away, but then they got sent to the wrong address. So then having like kind of a DAO constitution of like, what do we want to do? What happens if something fails? You know, it's not trustless. You have to trust each other. But if you don't, code is law. Hopefully, maybe you can write a little law code. But mostly it's write a proposal, a signaling proposal on a forum, figure out how people are going to vote on it and whether they like it or not, edit that in public for a couple weeks, just like your terms of service, and then post the proposal. A lot of this pain in this particular network could have been avoided on Prop 16, as it's infamously called, if somebody hadn't just YOLO'd into the proposal and been like, hey, here's Prop 16, and we're like, freaking out about it. This is the crazy gamed proposal here. And this, yeah, you can look into that. So, I'm going to take a couple more minutes and say, DAOs have potential, but they're really early. As with any new technology, it's really cool. We don't know what's wrong with it yet, and that's why it's exciting. Is that has the same amount of things wrong with it as things are wrong with anything that came before it. We just don't know which of those things it is yet. So how to do DAOs right? You're on a playground and you're playing. Just be a playground and set a clear understanding what you're going to do, and practice as much as you can through playtesting. Playtesting is so important because you want to play with fake money before you handle $50 million of somebody's real money and then set a precedent. So I made this game called DAO Game, which is a tabletop RPG game that you can play in order to hack DAOs. I have it with me. I have one copy that I can hand make with my laminator right now. If you want me to bring it to your camp so you can play it, my Discord ID is up there on the side, case 8089, and I will bring it to you. It's very easy to play, but it's a good way to get experience and exposure to DAOs and the kind of situations that you might have with DAOs. Here are some people playing the DAO game. Here are some other people playing the DAO game. There's also NPCs in the DAO game, so actually you can have a simulation of what people will vote like if they aren't really in line with you. So come play if you want. Just message me. Thank you so much. I hope you learned something about DAOs. Thank you, dog. Yeah, can we do a question? Yeah, take a.
Quick question. Do you know what happened to Solana and USDC and whether that was a hack in your definition?
I don't. I'm not familiar enough to give you a great soundbite at this moment. No.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, but you know, Solana goes down constantly, so.
Well, yeah, USDC was supposed to be back to the dollar, and then it completely crashed.
Yeah, same way with Terra Luna as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was a different thing.
Oh yeah, there's so many hacks. There's also the bridges to get you from one place to another get hacked constantly. So, yeah. Did you have?
You implied that the one person, one vote is a better system than proportional to how much money you have. Is there any viable way of doing that without like validating, social security numbers or something to validate?
Yeah, it's hard because especially if you're a developer in the ecosystem, you're going to have like 20 wallets and each one's going to have a little bit of your crypto and you're going to test with it. No, right now there isn't, although I know several security researchers who are working on that. And you could have one that's kind of like tied to the social graph. I think it's more about like social graph verification. So there's one group I know that's working on that. Yeah, it's really hard because if you're a co-op, it's pretty easy to be like, hey, here you go. Another thing to do is you could give somebody a single NFT and everybody just gets one once and you have some sort of social verification and there's only a certain number of those. And then if you wanted to, I guess you could pass them through to your different wallet, but there's just not as many. But yeah, that hasn't been solved. And then you can buy my NFT, and everyone can buy the NFT, and then they can just take over the... Yeah, it's a mess. There are many unsolved problems, which is why I like working in this space, because everything is unfinished. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Your model has to fit your voting. One other thing to do is you could have a conference and you could just give tokens or NFTs to the people in person and you could lock them to a wallet. You could be like, you can't send it anywhere. So you could, like an NTT, yeah, non-transferable token, yeah. And that would be one way of doing it. Of course, then it's not as decentralized because you have to have everybody in person for that initial drop. Or you have to have like a web of trust and trust all the nodes. Yeah, I mean, it's so human. It's almost, I think more of the system like cell biology than anything else, where you have like a cell and you have like a channel proteins, identifier proteins, and things like that. I think that's like, we're going from a very mechanical software system to like a more organic software layer with this type of stuff. So thanks for all the questions.
I made this. I keep trying to come by. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it when the night market is going, that's where we are. We have light up. We're not in a booth, we're just outside the front entrance with a wagon that's been built into sort of a portable vending tower, for lack of a better word. So yeah, come find us. We have a bunch of cool keychains and other items.
Oh, the necklace that.
Which one was that?
Circuitry etched into it.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, nice.
Said you had some announcements.
Oh, gotcha.
All right, how are you all doing this morning? Good, really good. For all the people that managed to wake up, so glad to see that you're here. Hey, real quick, how many people are not on Discord? Okay, good. So some of the announcements I'm making are on Discord, but if you're not on, you're not going to hear them. So I will mention a few things here. We do have a hardware hacking workshop that's been added. It should be on the website. It's later today at 3. The shirts, so we have extra attendee shirts. Hopefully everyone got one shirt. We want to make sure everyone got theirs, but we do have extras. They're for sale for $20. They also have the stainless steel mugs with the toorcamp deer runner on it. Those are $20 if you'd like to get some of those. We have a few left. But Reg will close today at 6:30. I know the hours were posted, I think, till later, but we want to have everyone, all the staff here for closing. So Reg will close early at 6:30 today. So if you want to pick up any merch, do so before then. If you haven't yet picked up an Elgene bottle, please pick one up. I think we still have some left. I can't see the inside of the box from here. But please take one and one only, because we want to make sure everyone gets one. And you can put some soup in it. We got the soup sitting right there, still iced down. You can enjoy that during the talk. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, there's one more Light Up Wing workshop today at the hardware hacking stage at 6 p.m. This is an adults only one, not because the wings are pornographic or filled with booze, but I think some of the materials are not appropriate for small ones to be handling or messing with. So if you'd like to make some light up wings, go check that out. Oh, yeah. So what color is traditionally associated with recycling? I'm not sure if some of you have figured it out yet, but there are 2 cans out there that are colored, both in colors associated with recycling, and one of them is not. So please just check I think there's little signs or labels. Go by the words, not the color. The Doe Bay staff have been finding garbage in the recycling. So just double check the bin before throwing stuff in. All the speakers, we're asking that they show up in the Discord talk questions section. So if you do have questions that you just can't ask here, or you think of them later, drop them in there, and hopefully they'll get a timely response back to you. You don't have to check it constantly, but just get back to people if you're mentioned. The restaurant is still ours and ours only. No reservations required. It's always been really hard to get in there just because everything was booked. But they're doing walk-ins, so if you're tired of cooking, or I don't know, you ran out of food or something, the food there's really great. The bar's really cool. Check them out. Lost and Found is at registration and will continue to be at registration until the registration closes. After that point, it will be at security. So we've already had quite a few actually lost objects and quite a few found objects. So check that out. And also the Voight Comp testing station. If you haven't been tested yet, how many people have been tested? Well, still quite a few of you haven't. They're putting on extended hours today just because it's the last day. So if you'd like to go by and determine what your origin is, whether you had a birth or whether you had an inception, please go check that out. Get your stamp for that. And I think that's about all for for the announcements for right now. So we've got Hannah up here giving a speech on alt text everywhere. So please welcome to the stage.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, so I'm Hannah, and this is Alt Text Everywhere. My pronouns are she, her, and I want to tell you something about alt text, but as part of that, I want to make this talk itself accessible, and that means I'm going to be doing something that is normally forbidden, which is reading a lot of my slides. I hope you'll put up with that. I'll be describing images, that kind of thing. I know, or at least I hope, that I have some viewers that is needed for. So to start with, what is alt text? Alt text is named after the way it's specified in HTML with the alt attribute on image tags. If present and well written, people who need screen readers to browse the web, like blind people, can still get a full understanding of what a site is trying to convey and interact with them without a sighted person's help. Alt text is a major accessibility issue on the web, and awareness around it is spreading rapidly. I do want to make one promise to you, which is that is the longest slide that I have. Anyway. So what makes good alt text? There has been a lot of discussion around this and a lot of stuff produced to guide you through writing alt text. The problem with them, in my opinion, is that they don't give you a guiding principle. And so this one is pretty specific to social media. This talk is mostly about alt text on social media, but it can fit in a tweet. So what about the image is necessary to enable someone who can't see it to be a full participant in the conversation? So that brings us to the problem with Twitter, which is you post an epic meme. In this case, I'm saying OMG LOL with a picture of a baby, very, very JPEG fragmented, and the slightly clipped off words TFW, that feel when. And then the likes and retweets start pouring in and pouring in and pouring in until you are suddenly viral. You have 10,000 replies, you have 157,000 retweets and 3.9 million likes. There are celebrities in your mentions lolling. Some person is offering you $20 to advertise their healing galaxy lamp or something like that. But then some nice person comes along, in this case, Mr. Rogers, back from the grave, I guess, and invokes a bot, get alt text. And that bot checks for alt text and replies with it. This is sort of dated. Twitter has released something that makes this obsolete, which is a thing to be celebrated. We'll talk about that later. But in this case, that bot says, sorry, not there. And nice person replies with a frowning face. This happened to me a lot, minus the viral bit. I'm not that good a poster. But I wanted to make sure that my feed was accessible. And so I was thinking about this, and I thought, well, what I need is a swear jar. I need to start a swear jar except for me posting images without alt text. That's a screenshot of a tweet. And then I thought, I'm a programmer. I can crystallize thoughts into symbols, and those symbols become real. And if that's not magic, I don't know what is. By which I mean the slightly more boring, I can use the Twitter API to monitor my account and yell at me if I post images without alt text. To do that, I wanted something pretty simple. This is an unpaid endorsement, but I really like them. The company Glitch, it's a hosting company, and it is how I started all my bots. I would not have been able to write them without it. In this case, I have hosting wanted with Glitch's logo. Unfortunately, Glitch forces you to write JavaScript, and I was not a JavaScript programmer. In this case, I have a picture of a woman holding her head, sitting in front of a computer with the diagonal text, JavaScript. Unfortunately, as you may not already know, the Twitter API, at least v1.1, credentials are in 4 parts. Different endpoints require different sets of those credentials. Rate limits of 1 a minute for like very core calls to the API. And finally, 403s, 403 forbidden, that means 429 rate limit exceeded. This drove me up a wall. This confused the hell out of me and made me spend hours trying to debug things. That call just succeeded. Why are my credentials now failing? The other piece is living that IEEE 754 life. In the early days of the Twitter API, it would use integers, JSON integers, to represent tweet IDs, user IDs, etc. At some point, their scheme for generating those IDs exceeded the length, the bit width that is representable in a float. And so what you get, and so they kindly said, oh, that's a problem. Okay, we'll provide a string version of that field. But they didn't remove the original one. And so if you're programming this, as you can imagine, you're like, oh, what do I need? I need the ID. Cool, that's whatever.id. It is not. You will get some of the most confusing bugs you have ever faced down, where you fetch a tweet and then try to reach out back to the API for additional information about that tweet and get information about a different tweet. In this case, I have a picture of the JSON returned by the API with an example of identifier and identifier string having a different, being off by 2 with those differences served. But in the end, I was able to produce a bot. It's alt text reminder. In this case, I have a picture of the alt text reminders profile. But it had some problems at first, but they were good problems. Namely, it picked up about 300 users in its first 24 hours, and those users were across multiple continents. So I had an internationalization problem within the first 24 hours of this project, which was an adventure. At this point, the bot speaks about 45 languages. So that was really cool. But writing alt text is work, but it's so much work, or at least it can be. And specifically, it can be a lot of work if you are out in the field or you are writing alt text for, say, large pieces of images of text. So I wrote a different bot. This bot originally was for like journalists, live streamers, etc., that were posting images from the field, didn't have time to write alt text. And the idea was that other people would write alt text for them. That failed. What I ended up transitioning it to is basically a set of utilities. In this case, I have a list of all the utilities that this bot provides. If you'd like to read them, there is alt text on them on the pinned tweet of alt text crew. But both of these are symptoms of a larger problem, which is that social media companies outsource accessibility work. And one of the ways that they do that is to AI, specifically Facebook and Instagram. Instagram, I believe, but I know Facebook. And people hearing about this problem think the same. They think, oh, well, we have image description AIs. Why don't we just use those? So I want to return really quickly to what I said earlier. What makes good alt text? What about the image is necessary to enable someone who can't see it to be a full participant in the conversation? And you have to keep that in your head as we look at a couple examples of alt text. In this case, we have an image with the auto-generated alt text, supposedly auto-generated alt text. This is from a marketing page. An old abandoned Soviet-era building in Berlin that has "Stop Wars" graffitied across the top section of the building front in large red letters. I have a lot of suspicion about this. One, it says that the building is abandoned. Do you see an abandoned building there? I don't know. Stop Wars is super broken up. That can confuse image description AIs pretty badly. And finally, what I see usually from image description AIs is something more like a white apartment building. Next to it is a smaller brick building. In front of it is a parking lot. The sky behind the building is blue with wisps of clouds. And that is too good in bad ways. Specifically, what AI descriptions are very good at is picking out the details, picking out a bunch of different details about an image. And that is a problem because it doesn't understand context. And context is necessary to generate good alt text, at least if we go by my definition of good alt text. In order to understand context, you need to incorporate not just the image, but the text attached to the image, if any, on the tweet. You need to incorporate the rest of the conversation that that tweet appears in. And what's more, you need to incorporate the social conversation, the larger conversation. If you don't do that, very often, you end up with something that doesn't pull people in, that doesn't enable people to participate. And what we need in order to do this, I would contend, is strong AI. In this case, I have a picture of Shodan from System Shock. So, strong AI, no problems, right? There have never been problems we've talked about with strong AI. But there is another problem. My secret shame. I make very silly memes. And those memes can require some significant description. In this case, it's long enough to be a pain to type on a phone. The description, I have here pictures of me writing an image description for that. I'll describe it and I'll read it off in a second, as well as an indicator that this took 435 characters. So it is a hand-drawn black and white line graph. The x-axis is time and the y-axis is mood. The line starts relatively high, labeled, okay, this should be easy, then drops hard to, wait, how? It rises a little bit on a sharp bump to, oh, I see it. Then craters to a long stretch labeled, nope, in a large and bolder font with from the other labels. Finally, it rises a bit and ends labeled, it was DNS. All the labels are somewhat handwriting font. I don't know about all y'all, but that describes a number of experiences over the course of my career. Little Easter egg here is if you look at the zoom in, you might see the extract text to clipboard button and think, ooh, I didn't know you could do that on Twitter. You can't yet. It's a Chrome extension that I'm in the middle of writing. So hopefully will be released at some point soon. And this happened over and over and over again. I would want to toast this every time someone was like, oh, it was DNS on Twitter. And that was a problem because, okay, I've got this kind of long alt text. Do I save it in a note? Do I have a note for every single image that I make? That took a fair amount of description. And do I rewrite it every time? That's a pain on a phone. What if I had somewhere centralized to keep them? And then I thought, oh, well, if I've written this and, someone looks at my images, which happens occasionally, and says, that's pretty cool, I'm going to save that and I'm going to use it later. What if they could use the alt text that I made? And so was born alttext.org, sort of. I am not a web programmer. I tried. CSS defeated me, at least for now. This is a alteration of a meme. It says, Nemesis ship ended with JavaScript. Now CSS is my nemesis. So there's not a website yet. I hope to get one together at some point along with a Chrome extension or a browser extension rather. But for now there is an API that I have not publicly documented yet because it needs some rate limiting. So I don't go broke from GCP costs. But it does exist and it is working. For now, the access is through the Twitter bot alt text crew. You can see how to invoke that through those command references that I posted. But here's the really cool thing. Twitter listened to this. Twitter finally has released a feature to about 10% of its audience that reminds people, or can remind people, before they post. One of the key weaknesses of the bot is that it can only react to an existing post. With this, there's going to be, I hope, a whole lot less images posted without alt text. And this is me bragging. I'm pretty bad about bragging, but I kind of did that. I helped prioritize that. And OCR built into Twitter, they're exploring that. Might be a while, so I'm still going to write that extension. But hey, might happen. So, final thoughts. If you produce anything out there on social media or websites that has images in it, make them accessible. Add alt text. If you are someone who writes websites, I want to specifically advise that you get a screen reader and you explore your own website via screen reader to see what it's like. I bet you that you're going to get a whole lot, you're going to learn a whole lot through that. So, thank you so much. If you have questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. If you have offers of employment, I would especially love to hear them. You can find me on Twitter at hbeckpdx, or you can email me, hannah@alttext.org. Yeah, thank you so much. That's all I needed. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. No worries.
Shit, I can plug in somewhere else, right? That's right. It'll be some free entertainment. Oh, that's okay. That's the one that actually works. Я скоро начинаю. Подтвердите, что вы поняли. One. Yep. We're I can take it. There we go. I'll hold it. It's easier. I'll walk. I'll dance. A what? Oh. Do you want to? 1-1. Now it's dead. Did I just kill it? Test, test. Yeah, we're gonna wait 4 minutes before the actual time.
All right. Welcome, everyone. If you weren't here earlier, I've got a couple of announcements to go over. Some of the stuff is in Discord, but if you're not in Discord, I'm happy to repeat stuff. We have a network hacking workshop today at 3 that's been added. Check the website for more details. Lost and found will move to security after Reg closes, because Reg is closing earlier than is posted. We want all the Reg people to be here for closing. So Reg will be shut down early today, but they do have some of those stainless steel mugs with the Tour Camp logo on them for sale, and we do have extra t-shirts now. We wanted to make sure that everyone got their one t-shirt. But we do have more for sale if you want to get another, get one for a friend in a different size or something. So Reg now shuts at 6:30. So please go by and pick up your merch if you want to pick up some extra stuff. Let's see. There's, I guess the Light Up Wings workshops were so popular that we added a few more. There's one more session today. It is for adults only. It's not because the wings are pornographic or boozy. It's just because I think of the materials that are involved, probably not appropriate for or dangerous for kids to be mucking with. So it would be for adults. So if you're an adult and you'd like some Light Up Wings, it's at 6 p.m. at the hardware hacking stage down field from us. Yeah, please check the dumpsters that you're putting stuff in. I know that both of them are colored the color of recycling, but one of them is actually trash, and the staff Doe Bay staff is finding trash in the recycling. So just look for the words, don't go by the color. We are asking that all of our speakers make themselves available in the Discord talk question channel later on. So if you have a question that comes up that you think about later, or you just don't have time to ask, and you can certainly do Q&A at the end of the talk, but if you don't want to ask then, ask in the channel and they'll get back to you in some timely fashion, hopefully before the weekend's up. We do have some bottles left, and I didn't actually check the box. Can anyone see in the box to see if there's still some bottles there? Okay, I think we still have some at the Reg desk. So if you'd like a new Relic Nalgene bottle, they're really nice. We do have extras. If you already have one, please don't take another one. We want everyone that wants one to get one, and there's a fine example of one of the bottles sitting right there. The restaurant is taking walk-ins. I know it's been difficult in past years to get in because they were booked up with people that weren't us. It's now 100% us, and the food is great. I guess they had scallops and halibut last night. I had clams a few nights ago. The bar is really good. So check out the restaurant if you're tired of cooking. And, oh yeah, Voigtkamp is got some extended hours today, as this is kind of the last day. So if you still don't know if you're a human or a replicant, please go down to the tent, black tent kind of across the field down there, and get yourself tested. They have sessions in the morning, which are now over, afternoon and evening, but I think it's going to be open much longer than the posted hours. So go check that out. And I guess that's it for announcements. So right now we've got Alex up here.
Yep.
Speaking about my data.
In your sign code.
In your sign code. So please welcome Alex to the stage.
Hey. Thanks, everybody. So good to see all of you here who dragged yourself into this somewhat technical presentation in a camp where this constitutes water. So this is I'm feeling a little nervous because this is the very first time I'm giving presentations for my kids right there, right? Those twins and the girl. So hopefully I don't do too badly. Well, we'll see. Kids don't bow too much to me. All right. Yeah, they'll test me. Don't ask crazy questions. Alrighty, so I'm Alex Ivkin. I've been doing security for quite a long time. I've been doing it in different places, different sites, and you'll actually see, you get a full hour of me. Sorry for that. I have this presentation, then the next presentation. You'll see the next presentation is going to be completely different from everything I'm talking about here. So I've been on up and down the security stack. Alrighty, I'm going to tell you a story. So be me, about 3.5 years ago, joining a startup. Startups have products, they ship products, they want products to be in the hands of the customers. The product is an executable the customer gets, the customer runs. The trouble is that it's all secure because it's actually a security startup, so they want to make sure that it authenticates. So they have to ship the code and then instruct the customer how to put the correct keys in so that they can register, right? That's not a very pleasant customer experience. We want to make it better. And then the trouble, of course, is because it's a security startup, the code is signed. So you obviously ship it signed and you give it to the customer, and there lies the trouble. How do you make the customer, you make something for the customer that runs itself, configures itself, has the unique customer keys, and yet is still signed? So like, yeah, the only option that comes to mind is you have to sign an executable for every single customer, which is not feasible. So I said, hey, can we make it better? And everybody came to me and said, nope, we can't make it better. That's the way it works. That's the way that, so many different vendors ship their code, and that's just it. So I said, nope, I'm going to fix it. And I did. Well, I'm giving you a spoiler, but this is the part of this presentation. So enter the world of Authenticode, the Microsoft Authenticode. Everybody heard and tried and used and hates and causes so many troubles and many different things. But in order to understand it, you have to just kind of abstract yourself out from it and say, Microsoft created Authenticode that only sort of proves that you have a key that created some hash. That's really it. And then that key that is signed in the certificate is actually trusted by Microsoft. There is whole Microsoft signing procedure that goes through. And the thing that you need to realize is that, okay, so if it's signing something, it's probably not signing its own certificates that it's signing with. So there must be pieces that it's not actually signing, or there may be, timestamps that it might not be signing. And this is where I start diving deeper and I go into the specs, the fun part. I open up the specs, start reading what the hell I'm dealing with. So, well, it turns out, not sure how well you guys can see it, but there's a couple of pieces here. So there's a checksum. It doesn't sign the checksum, obviously. If you sign the checksum, you break the checksum. It doesn't sign the certificate table, which is obvious. And then it has a special set of attributes that are attached to those certificates that indicate a bunch of other stuff that is also not signed. So that's pretty cool. Well, now I found some pieces that are not actually signed and may have something in them that is not signed and yet still accepted. There's also a piece of code right at the end of the executable that's completely not signed. It's like the debug information, and it's completely dropped, ignored. So I started looking at this. I said, somebody must have done it. And it's like, come on, somebody knew the specs and injected stuff. Yeah, they did. Black Hat 2016, they had a presentation about injecting data into data directory. Actually, I'll show it. It's this, injecting data into this certificate table, creating new enums data structures, kind of like, mucking with the PE files, and they actually created a custom loader to extract it. They published on GitHub, and I said, oh, cool, I'm done. Well, turns out not so. First of all, it was old, so there's no 64-bit support. It's like, all right, that's out. There's no DLL forwarding, and the PE process, the PE loader that actually loads that executable, if it's ever stopped, it breaks the whole thing, and the whole thing crashes, so it wasn't too pretty. But it got even worse. That was actually, since they published it, the Chinese people picked it up and started using it in their APTs. So that was a very well-known exploit that actually got out to Microsoft, and the Microsoft patched it up in this Microsoft fix. So it wasn't even a viable option. What I do? Go back to the specs. Start reading more. Okay, read more, and I come across this thing that says, hey, you've got this certificate. You've got the PKCS7 certificate that's embedded into this unsigned data structure. And then you have something that's called custom unauthenticated attributes. That unauthenticated piece really pops into existence. And what is it? What it is you take a real certificate and you start injecting your own attributes into that certificate, and you don't actually have to, you don't break the validity of the certificates by injecting those attributes. Well, that actually was possible, and I tried it out, and I can go and just start dropping unauthenticated attributes into an existing certificate. But turns out that a lot of EDRs actually check for that. EDRs do validate certificate integrity. I think at some point somebody must have been abusing those certificates, and they got to the point where they actually started checking this. And it was pretty easy to detect. You open up this page, you see this whole thing, and it's like, okay, yeah, somebody mocked up with our signature. All right, I go and think again. So what's the third thing I can do? Well, how about I just sign the certificate again with my own certificate? It's like, what's going to happen if there's two certificates? There's a valid Microsoft certificate and just something I made up. And then I go and run it as an, well, obviously that certificate that I created is going to be untrusted, right? I just, created something on my own. And if I run it, Microsoft is going to be perfectly happy. Turns out, as long as you have a single valid certificate, it's just going to ignore all the crap that you inject into it. So this was the revelation. As long as I have a single certificate that's signed that executable, I can throw in as many certificates as I can into that executable, and I can still make it valid, and Microsoft is never ever going to complain about it and just happily run it for me as an admin if I want. And that's what I did. I created that certificate, so I created another certificate, called it, 1337, obviously, because that's what you do. Injected some of my data, like whatever I needed, the keys for registration, the server name, the keys for actually registering the data for the customer, and packed it all up. The code looks like this. So I start with a generic signed executable. CI/CD pipeline produces that executable. I grab it. I create a separate certificate that I pack with my data, and it, you saw it was actually plain text. It doesn't have to be anything, but I can encode it base64 or whatever. Add attributes into it with the data, and then use either the Microsoft Signs tool, or what I actually found is this OSSL sign code is a Linux tool, and it's pretty awesome. I've been building it into all the code that I have, and it's really replicated. I don't even need to use Windows to do all this process. I have Linux code that just runs it and it does it, and of course, profit. Yes. Alrighty. This is the C# code that does this. This is a snapshot. I'll give you a link later to the actual full code, but just to show you how easy it is once you get the process down. Once you know the answer, everything is easy. Get a certificate with whatever name you want to throw in. Get an ID. Anything like this 38136 is a magical string that says anything after it is just yours for grabbing. You can do any other DN after that, and this is what I did. And then you go and read the signature from the file itself, and then you decode it here, the signed strings, and then you do whatever you want with your data. That's the reader. And then the writer kind of runs in a similar manner for this. So where's it useful? Installers, just like I said, my story. This was, I came back and said, yeah, there, I fixed it. Here's your signed code, and they can just run it, and it's going to self-configure itself for each customer. Like, wow, it actually works. They have releases as usual. They just publish code, and all it is that when customer goes to download, instead of actually giving them file, it goes a little Node.js processing, injects the data, and then gives them that download that's personalized for them. Users don't even notice anything. They just download stuff and run it. Of course, they always do that. That's the fun of it. All right, and now, as a security people, you should be thinking, what can I do with it? Well, you can do a lot of stuff with it now. So, you know how a lot of EDRs go and check for signatures, for Microsoft signatures, and say, oh, this is a Microsoft executable that's in System 32. It must be good. It's signed with a valid Microsoft signature. Yeah, if you want to sign your data in those executables, just, slide it in so nobody notices. That's how you do it. You just, pump it full chunk of your data and get it. Now, data is good. Obviously, you want to code, right? You want to actually run something. So I had a couple ideas. One idea, which actually came from that dude sitting down there, my friend, is that data can actually be microcode for execution. So, there's free open source VMs or state machines. Basically, all they do is just run basically data, right? You give it a sequence of bytes, and then it does something for you. And they're fully full machines you can actually, essentially small VMs. As long as you can have a small VM that just reads data, then you have your code to be executed, right? So even though you're not injecting assembly or C code, you're injecting data, that data can be processed into actual work, into instructions by the VM. So that's a good idea. Obviously, if you want to bypass entropy detectors, you know, the executable will look like a serial executable with some crazy certificate on it, but nobody checks for certificates. Nobody's gonna notice that you've injected some stuff in it. There's more advanced ideas which I didn't have time to implement, but you know, they're still valid ideas. You can encrypt your shellcode with the certificates that have keys. So for example, you inject your shellcode, but you also encrypt it, and the encryption key is in the signed signature. So it's a sign, encrypted, injected. If you remember from the days of early viruses, there was a concept of polymorphic viruses, right? Polymorphic is something that encrypts itself, but then it has a random key, and then that random key also is processed by a random decryptor. So nothing has a static signature. Every time you do this, it's going to be something new. So you can't detect it with any kind of signatures. You have to resort to entropy, which can be defeated by the fact that the rest of the executables is just a standard Windows executable. So not even an entropy detector can be used. So there's a lot of fun you can have with that. And then yeah, there's the last thing is that some EDRs go by hash detection, and by modifying this, you can actually break the hash, and then it'll be a new, like you inject something very benign in this that EDRs. So this last idea is the opposite of what I just explained. EDRs look for known bad hashes. You inject your data, you break the hash, they're not going to detect it anymore, and you don't break your driver that you actually wanted to do. All right, so I released 2 pieces of code. I released the sign reader and the sign writer. They're in C#. I actually rewrote that in Go. Yeah, everybody scanned that QR code? Yeah, you did? No? Oh, okay. All right. Just make sure you scan the QR code, because this is what you do at security conferences. Exactly. Good. So I released the C# and the Go. I'm going to release the Golang code because I just like Golang better. But C# allowed me to create those both for Windows and Linux. It's the same code. You just recompile it. It's gonna .NET 5 or 6. I don't remember. Yeah, go grab it, play with it, have fun. Good. Thank you. That was it. Yeah. All right. Obviously, it was a lot. Questions? Well, yeah, it is an interesting question. What I actually think that I don't think Microsoft is going to fix that hole. What I think is more likely going to happen is EDRs are probably going to start looking for bogus certificates added on top of the valid certificate. Because Microsoft, you know, I later discovered there are a couple of companies. I think Optics is one that actually does that for does something. I don't know exactly what they do, but they have this similar sign code that has embedded data that you run, and it runs for you. So they obviously figured out some way of doing it as well. Whether it's the same method or not, I don't know. But if Microsoft changes the limits it to one certificate, they're going to break a whole lot of stuff. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, it's a good question. Do I need to repeat the questions? You guys in the back hear it? Oh. Oh, okay. Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. The question was, so if EDRs are checking for the overall hash, shouldn't they be checking for the actual authenticated hash? And this way they would actually fix themselves to the real executable. I think a lot of them are actually doing the authenticated hash. A lot of them are relying on the same signature. The trick, though, is authenticated hash, as I showed earlier, does not include extra certificates, or it actually doesn't include any certificates, right? You can't hash the certificates you're signing with, because by doing that, you're actually breaking the hash. Yeah, yeah. The kernel driver thing goes out the window, but you come up with another way. That's part of the fun of it. Other questions? Yes, I see another friend sitting in the audience, and he knows what I'm talking about. Now he knows the secret sauce of how we're doing it. So the question is, does the code here actually cover all the use cases for different things? It actually does. All it does is it just injects a string, and it could be anything. Base 64, you introduce whatever separators you have. Actually, the example of the reader splits it by spaces, but then you can modify it and split it by whatever you want. Yeah, but essentially it's a string injector into a new certificate that it creates, and it uses this OSSL signing tool that you do. And it's all also running in Docker, because I love Docker, because that's exactly what my next presentation is going to be about. Any other questions? All right. I hope it was helpful. Thank you. We can probably take a 5-minute break. Test. right, so for this presentation, I have to put my other hat on. We're gonna wait till beginning, but I'm just explaining why I'm doing this, and you'll figure it out in a second.
Sorry, it's a little loud. Let's get started with announcements. We still have a minute or two. The Voight Comp test, if you have not taken it, it's occurring in the black tent just across the way that says Voight Comp. If you're curious about whether or not you had a birth or you had an inception, this would be the place to find out. The testing's free, and the hours have been extended to most of the day, just because it's the last day. And so if you guys haven't done the test, it's a lot of fun, and you get a stamp in your passport that will prove either way along with a form. So you have your little certificate to go with that. So you'll hold on to that, and I think it's useful in a handful of places across the camp, and will be useful next time too. So Lost and Found is up front, including if they're lost kids, you come across some child that is lost, don't know where they are, where their parents are, drop them off at the reception.
I've been told you have a pretty good bin for them where they can come and collect. So.
Oh, it has air holes and everything.
Good boys. So if you get lost, we'll find you there.
Let's see. I think we still have some Nalgene bottles up at Reception Reg. New Relic has provided those as a sponsor, so thank you for doing that. And they're wonderfully good at holding soup, which we got sitting over there in the corner. We are asking all the speakers to show up in the Discord questions channel after the talk. So if you have a question you can't get addressed here, you think of later, pop it in there and they'll eventually get back to you. Also, please be aware that the dumpsters are both colored the color of recycling for different cities. But one of them is definitely not recycling, and the staff here has been finding trash thrown in the recycling one. So just use the label on the outside to determine which is which, not the color. There is one more, well, we added a few more, but there's one more left of the Light Up Wings workshops. This one is adult oriented. Specifically, I think just because of some of the materials might not be good for untrained hands to be handling. But if you want Light Up Wings, please show up.
You mean Light Wings won't have swear words on them? Is that not why? Swear words, right, on wings? That's why not kids friendly.
Yeah, pornographic wings. But yeah, if you want some for tonight to roam around with, please show up at the hardware hacking stage, which is all the way behind us at 6 p.m. Did I already mention that Reg is shutting down early? Reg is shutting down early because of closing ceremonies, as is the shuttle to offsite parking. After closing, if you are leaving tonight and you need to get to offsite parking, there will be a phone number up at registration where you can just get the shuttle on demand. And that's not the third-party shuttle that's out there. This is just to the offsite parking area. We will be selling shirts up until the closing of registration. We want to make sure everyone got one. We think everyone did. If you'd like another one, or you want to take one to a friend home or something like that, they're actually talking about shirt sizes right now. You can pick them up for $20, or you can use that $20 and pick up one of the stainless steel mugs. They're actually really nice. Hold 15 ounces of soup and have the Tour Camp logo on them. So pick those up, cash or Venmo, before 6:30. After that point in time, Lost and Found will move to the security at the retreat house. So if you're looking for your lost child, the bin will be moved down there. There's a network hacking workshop today at 3 p.m. that has been added. It's on the website. It should be on the website. The ham radio exam, if we're studying for that and you want to get another kind of tested, then that's at 6 p.m. in the night market. And the shuttle hours, again, this offsite parking shuttle, not the island shuttle that's a third party that we have no control over. The hours for tomorrow, for Sunday, are 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. So I don't think there's any shuttles or any ferries earlier than that, so that works out great. And that's about it for announcements. So we've got navigating the...
Yeah. You've got me again, Alex Ivkin, navigating the shallow waters of Kubernetes security. As you can see, I put my other hat on. I have many hats. I do a lot of different security, for good or for bad. That means I know a lot, but sometimes not very deep. But this one, I've been researching for quite a bit of time, and actually now I'm working very deeply in this days and days on. Well, so I'm this was a presentation for a full hour that I fit in 20 minutes, so it's gonna be fast speed, and hopefully I'll make it entertaining for you. But I've also been known to fit in 40 slides in 10 minutes presentation, so it's gonna be fun. Yay! All right, me heart this guy to all you for scallywags. I don't know. I can't. You know, it's a Russian pirate. You have to imagine a Russian pirate. So, okay. So think about the application. What I'm gonna try to do in this presentation is explain to you how to think about Kubernetes security. I want to give you a concept of what do you see and why do you see those vulnerabilities, why do you see those specific things in Kubernetes security being discovered, and how people go about finding them, and how you can go and find them and fix them or break them, do whatever with them. But the reality is you need to understand the concept of what is happening behind Kubernetes. Who's here actually running something like on Kubernetes, just so I know? Show of hands. Actually quite a bit, about half. Well, good, welcome. So a lot of this won't be new to you, but ask question. So the modern stack, you have to understand it, right? This is the way that the applications are built right now. You've got the platform security, you've got the kernel on top of it, then something is packaged into containers, then something orchestrates those containers so they run all in sync and proper order, and then finally you get your application, right? This is the application runs on top of that. The way that people approach this is they say, yeah, application is crap, we know this, right? Well, platform is horrible, and it's actually, this is the company. There's a company that focuses on platform security. Everybody knows it's crap, but nobody knows how to fix it except for, few. Kernel, we all got exploits in kernel. I mean, it's getting better. It's not exactly bad, and there's been a lot of work on that, so it's okay. But this is a magical end that's going to solve it all for us. Our containers are going to solve the security. Well, and that's the question. You got to know your others. What about containers? Containers can help with your security. What do they help with? They help with persistence, although, persistence meaning that, containers by itself, you restart the container, you lose everything. They're supposedly stateless. There's certain things about them, but they're stateless. The trick with this is there's been research that people run containers for way too long. They run there for days and days and days, kind of breaking this whole persistence thing. Now, living out the land, that means, containers have less tools, so it's harder to do the LOL. There's harder to do path traversals because you can't really easily get out of that namespace into the others one. And then usually, hopefully, people put resource constraints, so you can't really DOS things that are from inside of the containers. That's where they help. Where they don't help, if you broke your app, if you did crazy stuff to your app, if you were just ignorant of your app, they're not going to fix it. So if you've got things like TOC, TOU, they've got overflows, RCs, everything, that's going to stay there, and you're just going to have them the same in the containers. SSRF is a big thing right now, and this is the reason you need to focus on SSRF is now is the service side is you get out of the container, you hit on all the service, you're on the inside of the network, and this is where they're not going to help you if you got them. And then a lot of CRIs, Docker D has been a CRI of the choice for a while. Now it's switched off. But anyhow, CRIs come with good defaults for showing security on the containers. You change those defaults, you're usually going to get yourself in worse state with security. All right. You got containers. How do you actually ship those containers? How do you make them run and work? And this is where the orchestrators comes in. And before Kubernetes, there were those guys, right? Those guys are good for something, not so good for something. But the Kubernetes came as the king, and the Mr. Captain here, Kubernetes, is taking over the world. This is why we're talking about him. Concepts. So you need the concept behind Kubernetes is they came in and said, we're going to do three things. We're going to do declarative deployment, meaning we're not going to tell how to deploy it. We're just going to say what we need. And then Kubernetes is going to figure out how to, stack it all up, where to get the pods running, how to get the nodes configured, how to get the daemon sets, etc. They also said we're not going to hide any APIs. Everything is going to be public. Everything is going to be visible. Not everything is going to be accessible, but at least you're going to know about those APIs. And then we're just going to work for the developers. Developers, right? So developers are the most important. And they gave them this. So what do you need to run your application? This is a developer coming in. Okay, I built my Node app or whatever, Go app, and I put it into a Docker container, Docker image. What I need to make it run? And this is where the fun part starts. This is where it really becomes interesting. your app needs to talk to each other, right? They need to connect to databases, Redis, caches, etc., pull the data in, save the data. They also need an ingress point. Somebody from the internet needs to talk to that app. They also need something to monitor them. They need something to keep logs and troubleshoot and all that stuff. And they also need some sort of authorization because, they heard the security is important, so I guess they need to throw an authorization server. And they heard about the network controller to message it all up. You need a way of delivering the apps. They need a registry of sorts to make sure that all those images are deployed. They also need a package manager to monitor and maintain the versions of all those registries. They also need a TLS manager because there's a whole lot of TLS certificates in this, so they need a manager for this. And of course, they need a dashboard for this. So if you run an application on Kubernetes, you end up with this crap. All right, this is what you end up with. Yep. It's the cloud native landscape. This is how much stuff. Sorry, my kids are sitting up front, so I can't really swear. So I have to go be nice today. This is how much you end up with in the ecosystem. This is what Kubernetes applications sprung up with. Those are all the various vendors that are doing stuff in this and trying to provide their awesome and the best solution. So the picture above, this is what I just mapped the most popular vendors. So many of you heard about Prometheus and Prometheus. Jeez. All right, and Grafana, Elastic Envoy, Istio is the most popular one, although, it's been debated and challenged in Helm and Registry. So those are the popular vendors that kind of fit into this picture, but then again, you get a lot of those little things. Yay, now we come to the fun part. How do we actually attack it? Well, you know what? Complexity is what? Is the enemy of security, right? You end up with complexity, something is going to break. So you're going to find a way of breaking it. How do you find where you break? Well, think about those concepts. So the number one, declarative deployment. What declarative deployment means to you is you basically know everything that's in your cluster. You can find out everything that's there. That's your asset discovery. So remember the days when you needed to find the servers? Well, now you just ask an API and it just gives you a list of everything that's on there. That's pretty good for us. Kubernetes will do everything for you. So if you've got your little implant and you want to deploy it on all the pods and all the nodes, you just write a YAML file and say deploy, and Kubernetes does and deploys your little implant everywhere. So thank you, Kubernetes. The interesting thing is that because it's declarative, if you actually slide between the rules and if you abuse it to the point where you talk to the Kubernetes' database natively and you inject something to that database, Kubernetes is not going to know about it because it's not been declared to it. So you can actually slide between the lines by not telling it what you deployed, so it's not going to know what it doesn't know. That's the fun part about declarative deployment. The second thing, APIs are everywhere. Of course APIs are everywhere. And you love them because you can get to all of them and you can talk to all of them. Now, there's an RBAC that's going to prevent you from doing most of the things, but most of the time RBAC is complex and misconfigured. So a lot of times your easiest way is through the front door. Just poke around the RBAC and see what APIs are open for you. And a lot of exploits are done this way. Next thing is developers. Yes, we all love developers. They store stuff in secrets. They store stuff in config data where the secrets are not supposed to be stored. They have legacy apps that has just been thrown into the Docker containers and with the hope that it works. And it seems to them that it worked, but you can have so many different interesting things into those containers. And of course, a lot of developers just think security. It's like, let's get it working. Let's just make sure that it runs, and we're gonna do security later. Yes, and it runs, and nobody has time to do security later, right? So you just make sure you meet the developer where they're at. Right now, what do we do with it? Here's a small compendium of things that have been happening in Kubernetes security space, and this is how people have been owning clusters. The easiest and obvious one is the open ports, right? People get their GKE, they get the Amazon clusters, they get their Microsoft clusters out on the intranets to make it easy to access, and they open ports. And this is the ports that people just been finding through Shodan and connecting to the APIs, which are well known and documented. The second thing is people have been abusing the supply chain and injecting themselves into the build layers of the containers. If you have your container built of something, that doesn't mean you verified what it is actually built on. So you can do a very fun supply chain security abuse by building your own implant into the layer of a container that others people build on. A lot of container escapes been happening. They're more of a research thing, but it's really about kernel, right? If you think about containers, they use the same kernel as your node itself uses. So if you find an exploit, any kernel exploit will actually provide you, most of them will provide you an escape out of the container because it's the same kernel. If you have an RC on kernel somehow through something, then you have an RC on the node itself, and you can cross the boundaries up and down. Network sniffing, that's actually not been a lot, but it's well documented. There's eBPF filters that can inject you into that network, and a lot of times that network is trusted, and you can just extract the data. Finding keys, that was the basic one in Node impose this because developers don't put proper RBAC controls on their secrets and the keys. General stuff. What did I do and what you can do with it is, first of all, you can do just basic pen testing on the app. Like I said, a lot of developers throw app in the container hoping that it'll help, and in a lot of cases it doesn't. So if they have an SSRF, then you get yourself into talking to the master API through the app. The good thing that I actually found that's very helpful is, you remember that picture with a lot of different logos? Well, all those applications, if you find what the stack they're using, you can go on the GitHub and just type in is open label area security, find out all open security issues, and just use them. So you see, it's really easy. Another set of complexity that comes with it is that because there's such a big choice of things, people sometimes choose not the best things to do. This is an example of the CNIs, the network controllers. Out of like 6 popular ones, only Cilium and WaveNet actually do encryption. The rest just run their plain text HTTP protocol. So you get your filter on and you sniff all the data of the network. So if they chose incorrectly, then it's all your gain. Same with network policies, CNIs, ingress controllers. You see there's 6 most popular ones. They all different features. Istio seems to be winning, but it also has the better security than most of them, so that's sort of okay. And the real world Kubernetes, what it actually ends up being is a play into the complexity. A lot of times you don't need to do an all day. You don't need to do really hard research. You don't need to read a lot of understand the application. All you need to do is just look for misconfiguration, because this is what happens when you do a lot of complex things. And this is sort of sets of misconfiguration that I found. The funny thing is that early in the game, Kubernetes knew that they need to put proper security in, just like Docker did, right? Docker did a good work in there, but they were fairly simple. They only had like 5 different things to deal with. Kubernetes has 50 different things or 500 things to deal with. And they early on came in, okay, we're going to do pod security policies. We're going to define what people can and cannot do in specific pods. Well, that turns out to be really complicated. That turns out so complicated that people were not actually using it. And after a while, they killed it. They said, okay, we created something that people were found too complicated to do, so they never used it, so all their pods were wide open, and we just made the security worse. We made an appearance of security, but not an actual security. Yeah, what do? Yeah. Whose network? A lot of people's. Couple of recommendations of what I found. If you're just starting with in easy mode, do simple images. If you're building Docker files, build image yourself. Don't trust too many images. Start with something that's really trusted. Don't ever do privileged containers. And of course, your developers will ask you for privileged containers because that's the only way their app works. But push back. Don't do this. You don't want to root on the node. monitor if you're in cloud. Metadata is pretty bad. If you're really running on bare metal, which means you're hardcore, use an OS that actually limits you to containers and RBAC, obviously. That's easy. Normal mode Kubernetes security, build from scratch. If you're familiar with distroless images, it's actually a pretty good concept. Google's concept, distroless images, is that you really don't need any tooling from your OS to run your application. You build something in Go, all you need is Go and maybe C libc. Sometimes not even that. So all you do is you just package the app. So you have a way of building an app, and then you have a package that doesn't have anything from the OS. So like you don't get apt-get, and then you just run it. The trouble is, of course, you don't get an apt-get. So if something goes wrong, you can't troubleshoot it. So now you need to have another image. But all in all, it's a good concept. The simpler you get, the easier and more secure it's going to be for you. Pod security admission controller, that's replaced pod security policies. Supposedly easier. I actually haven't tried it. I hope they learn on their mistakes, so hopefully it's better. Registries, remapping root to not root user. There's a general recommendation. SAS, DAS, software composition analysis. That's all good for dealing with the supply chain abuse. And then if you have secrets, it's best not to keep them in Kubernetes. Just have them go into a vault of sorts, just so that they're easier controlled by somebody else other than developers. All right, if you go hard mode, well, actually, I should cross that first line. But anyhow, hard mode means you can go with zero trust, mutual TLS. There's got signatures on the images. I put Tough Notary, but actually a better solution is a SigStore that does signing a lot easier, better. There's actually a thing called confidential nodes where they encrypt the memory as well. So if somebody takes a full dump of your node, then they can't decrypt the memory from the and get the keys out. There's also I've talked about this CRI, the Docker D, if you like, that's usually running under Kubernetes, but it doesn't have to. There are VMs that you can actually, KVM-based one and, KVM QEMU and another VM running that you can actually put underneath your containers. So it's actually VM that's running, not a Docker D. And that makes it a lot harder to break because, the containers, hypervisors provide much better separation. And then don't ever run namespaces to provide multi-tenancy. Like, don't put customers into the same cluster because the namespaces in Kubernetes clusters are just virtual sort of separation. You actually have to use separate clusters to separate customers. Yay, a lot of slides. I just as I told you. If you want to see, I'll post those slides later on. But I run a couple of also GitHub repositories with the information that I post about container issues and Kubernetes issues. If you're interested, you can go there. I need to update them. I haven't actually had a chance, but there's a lot of information available to you. Like I said, I hope it gives you a good overview, a concept that it's really about complexity and finding stuff and people that just misconfigured stuff rather than fighting O-days and cool stuff in Kubernetes. Yeah, that's it. That's me. That's Kubernetes. Arr. Arr. Thank you. Any questions? I know I shoot information fast at you. Yes, go ahead. I actually had a slide maybe I have an extra slide on K3. Yeah, the question is about K3S. How much of this changes when you go to simplified Kubernetes? It gets quite a bit worse. They trimmed a lot of stuff. I thought I trimmed the slide. I had an extra slide after this one to talk about different like K3S, Minikube, and others. But yeah, anything outside of the standard Kubernetes, it just gets worse.
What does a typical attack chain look like for you?
What is a typical attack chain? usually starts with an application because you do need to some pivot points. So you try to fuzz an app, you try to find ways of running CCRF, SSRF, XRF, anything that you can abuse the app and get some endpoint. And once you've got in the app, then you start poking at the APIs, seeing what APIs are available from that app. And usually you find a lot. And then once you find the APIs, then you start probing against the RBAC, because usually RBAC is misconfigured. If it's in the cloud, you can also poke at the metadata, but a lot of cloud providers actually got better about it. And so metadata is not as useful anymore, but then you poke at APIs. Once you found a handle on APIs, then you can do listing and find misconfigurations and start deploying your stuff into Kubernetes. No, not at all. I mean, occasionally when there's a new like kernel exploit that comes out, usually people are not that good at patching kernel exploits. Yeah, I'll throw a kernel exploit. It works sometimes, not always. Yep. Yeah, go ahead.
So to secure Kubernetes, you need to be a cloud expert, a networking expert, an application expert,
So the question is to secure Kubernetes, you need to be an application expert, the network expert, cloud expert, and an SCA expert. Oh, that's a tough question, actually. Like I said, I wear a lot of hats, so I understand a lot of those things at sometimes not a deep enough level, not an expert level, but I understand enough to know where to look and probe. So in certain cases, I'd go and ask other people and say, so that doesn't look right to me. Is that what you're thinking? And then kind of get an expertise from them. Yep. There's another question there.
I'm curious what it looks like when sorry, context. Are you doing like pet testing in Kubernetes, like Kubernetes environments? Or?
I'm more blue teaming. I'm sort of a purple team. I'm building and testing.
Cool. I'm sort of wondering like what environments look like when if say there's an application vulnerability, but then you get there and then like APIs are all super locked down, and then like what sort of like if it's a more advanced attack and the configuration it looks really good and pretty hardened environment, like where would you, if you were an attacker, where would you look then? Like if the easy modes are like shut down, what's next from an attacker point of view?
Yeah, if they shut down the easy modes, I don't know. Actually, I don't have an answer to that question. Yeah, sorry.
What are your feelings on scanning for vulnerabilities or systems that help scan for vulnerabilities as a prevention?
Oh, they suck. They suck. They suck so much.
Or maybe like the coded question there is, are any less suck than others that I might use?
You know what? I used to work for Checkmarks, which is a software SaaS company, right? And the biggest thing that they always had is the false positives, like let's scan and throw in a bunch of shit. And I thought that was bad. It's like, come on, people, you should do better. And it's like, and then I moved into the Kubernetes world and saw the container scanners and everything, and they throw in so much false positives. It's almost like everything is a positive. It's like, come on, people, you could just like, no. You know what? Google usually does really, really good security, and Google came up with their own scanning engine for containers, right? And it still sucks. That's my answer. You could try the whatever it's called, the JKey container scanner. It'll produce less positive. The reality is that people throw in a lot of stuff into containers, and they use maybe barely 1% of it, right? They throw in the whole distribution. This is why I said distroless images are really the way to go. But they throw in the full distribution. They lose 1% of it, and then your image scanner will flag on the rest 99. It's like, and you're looking at it, it's like, I'm not using any of that. Yep. Right. Thank you.